Manhattan burned, not the clean fire of accident or natural disaster. This was the deliberate burn of war machinery grinding flesh and concrete into the same worthless dust. Skyscrapers stood like broken teeth against a sky choked with smoke. The streets ran with debris and blood in equal measure. Jin Kazama moved through the chaos with the mechanical precision of a man who had stopped asking questions. His fists were numb. His mind was quieter. Somewhere behind the ringing in his ears, he could hear Lars shouting tactical orders. Something about extraction points. Something about regrouping. It didn't matter. G Corporation's forces had turned New York into a demonstration. The message was clear: resist, and this is your reward. The world had watched Kazuya Mishima reveal his devil form on live television 3 days ago. Now they watched him burn the heart of the Western world. Jin's vision blurred. For a moment the flames took shape. Massive. Predatory. The silhouette of something that should not exist. Ogre. The thing that killed his mother. Jin's hands trembled. The devil gene stirred beneath his skin like a second heartbeat. It whispered the same lie it always whispered. Let me out, and I will end this. Let me out, and you will have the power to stop him. He clenched his jaw until his teeth ached. The hallucination dissolved. Just fire. Just war. Just the world ending one city block at a time. Across the ocean, in a war zone that had no name, because G Corporation controlled the maps, something else was ending. The patrol hadn't seen it coming. 12 Jack 7 units, military grade, each one capable of reducing a tank to scrap metal. They moved in formation through the ruins of what used to be a commercial district. Their sensors swept the area in perfect synchronization. Their weapon systems were hot. The central unit registered the anomaly first. Heat signature, humanoid, standing in the middle of the street. No vehicle, no support, no weapon. The Jack units processed this information in 0.3 seconds and reached the same conclusion: civilian casualty. Acceptable loss. Continue patrol. The figure didn't move as they approached. He stood with his hands loose at his sides. His posture was relaxed to the point of insult. The Jack unit's targeting systems painted red crosshairs across his chest. Still, he didn't move. The lead unit initiated standard protocol. Verbal warning: comply or be eliminated. The man smiled. It wasn't a human smile. It was the expression of something that had just confirmed its suspicions about how boring the world had become. The Jack units opened fire. Bullets tore through the air where the man had been standing. But he was no longer there. He was beside the leftmost unit, moving with a speed that made their targeting computers shriek error messages. His hand closed around the Jack's head. What happened next didn't belong in any combat manual. The man's fingers found gaps in the reinforced plating that shouldn't exist. He pulled. Metal screamed. Hydraulics burst. The Jack's head came away from its body like a bottle cap. The other units adjusted. 11 weapons swiveled toward the target. He was already moving. Not running, walking. Each step placed with the confidence of something that had never needed to hurry. A Jack unit swung its arm in a wide arc, pistons hissing with enough force to demolish a concrete barrier. The man caught the limb mid-swing. For a moment, nothing happened. Machine and flesh locked in perfect equilibrium. Then the man's muscles shifted beneath his skin. The Jack's arm bent backward. Composite steel folded like cardboard. The unit's balance failed. It toppled forward. The man stepped aside and let gravity do the work. 3 units charged simultaneously. Coordinated attack pattern, flanking positions, overwhelming force. The man moved through them like water finding cracks in stone. A palm strike to a chassis joint, a shoulder check that sent half a ton of military hardware stumbling. A casual grab that turned a jack unit into a makeshift weapon swung into its brothers with enough force to shatter both. No wasted movement. No excess effort. Just the absolute certainty of something that had never lost. The remaining units calculated their odds and came to a unanimous decision: escalate. Heavy ordnance authorized. Missiles launched from shoulder mounts. The street erupted in fire and shrapnel. When the smoke cleared, the man was standing in a crater. His clothes were singed. His skin showed no damage. He brushed dust from his shoulder with the same attention someone might give a mild inconvenience. Then his back moved. The muscles beneath his skin rippled and expanded, forming a grotesque shape that resembled a twisted face. A demon's visage carved in living tissue. The air around him seemed to thicken with something that had nothing to do with heat or smoke. Pure pressure. The weight of something that refused to be measured by normal standards. The jack units processed this new data, their combat algorithms, and searched for precedent. They found none. Every system screamed warnings that translated to the same basic message: retreat. But they were machines. They didn't retreat. They attacked. The man moved. What followed wasn't a fight. It was a demonstration. Each jack unit fell in sequence, dismantled with the efficiency of someone who had done this 1,000 times and found it less interesting each time. When the last unit collapsed, sparking and twitching, the man stood in the center of carnage that would take engineers 3 days to catalog and 6 months to explain. He looked up at the sky. Somewhere above the smoke and ash, satellites watched. Reconnaissance drones recorded. Intelligence agencies scrambled to identify the threat. The man didn't care. He had come to this world the same way. He approached everything without permission and without apology. A rift had opened in the fabric of whatever separated dimensions or realities, or the spaces between impossibilities. He had stepped through because something on the other side felt like it might be worth his time. Now he stood in a world at war and felt only mild curiosity. Somewhere in this chaos, there would be someone strong. Someone worth fighting. Someone who could make him feel something other than boredom. He started walking. Behind him, the wreckage of G Corporation's finest automation smoldered. Above him, alert systems triggered across 3 continents. Analysts stared at footage that made no sense. Generals demanded explanations that didn't exist. In a command center buried beneath the Tokyo skyline, Kazuya Mishima watched the same footage. His expression didn't change. The faintest curve touched his lips. "So," he said to the empty room, "the world still has surprises." He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. Around him, screens showed a dozen different war zones, 100 different demonstrations of power. The systematic dismantling of every force that dared oppose G Corporation's vision of order. But his eyes stayed on one screen, on the man who had just proven that all their weapons, all their technology, all their carefully calculated demonstrations of dominance meant nothing to something that existed outside their framework. Kazuya's smile widened. "Good." The word hung in the air like a promise. Across the city, in a bunker that officially didn't exist, Lars Alexanderson watched the same footage with very different thoughts. His knuckles were white where they gripped the table's edge. Beside him, Lee Cowlan's usual smirk had vanished. "Tell me we have options," Lars said. Lee replayed the footage, slowed it down, enhanced it, ran it through every analysis protocol they had. "We don't," he said finally. Lars closed his eyes. Operation Lightning had failed. Jin was compromised. Kazuya was winning, and now this, whatever this was. Find out everything, he said. Who he is, where he came from, what he wants. Lee nodded, but his eyes stayed on the screen, watching the man walk away from destruction with the ease of someone who had never questioned his right to exist. In the wreckage of Manhattan, Jin Kazama felt the devil gene pulse one more time. The whisper grew louder, more insistent. Let me out. He looked at the flames and saw Ogre again, saw his mother falling, saw every failure that led to this moment. And somewhere in a world that had just become infinitely more complicated, Yujiro Hanma kept walking. He had no interest in their war, no stake in their conflict, no desire to save or destroy their world. He only wanted one thing, to find out if this reality had anything strong enough to make him try. The bunker smelled like recycled air and desperation. Lars stood in front of a wall of monitors, each one showing a different angle of the same nightmare. The footage had been playing on loop for 6 hours. Every analyst in Yggdrasil had seen it. None of them had answers that made sense. Lee tapped a screen, freezing the image on a single frame. The man stood in the center of mechanical carnage, one hand resting casually on the head of a jack unit he'd torn apart like cheap plastic. Infrared shows normal body temperature, Lee said. No energy signature, no cybernetic enhancement, no devil gene markers. Lars watched the next sequence. The man moving through gunfire like it was rain, every motion economical, every strike placed with surgical precision. So what is he? Lee shrugged. According to every scan we have, human. Very, very angry human. Humans don't do that. This one does. Lars replayed the final moments, the man's back rippling into that grotesque shape, the air seeming to bend around him. Jack unit stumbling backward before his advance even began. Where is he now? Lee pulled up a map, red markers dotted across 3 continents, tracing a path through G Corporation territory. Each marker represented a site where their forces had encountered something impossible, something that left behind wreckage and no bodies except their own. He's moving toward Tokyo, Lee said. Not fast, not slow, just walking, like he's sightseeing. Lars studied the pattern. Every location had one thing in common: G Corporation military presence. Heavy weapons, fortified positions, the kind of targets that required planning and support to assault. This thing just walked through them. What does he want? I don't think he wants anything, Lee said quietly. I think he's looking. For what? Lee met his eyes. Something worth his time. The implications settled in the air between them. Lars had seen that kind of searching before. Jin had it when the devil gene was quiet. Kazuya had it when he was bored with winning. But this was different. This was the patience of something that had been searching for a very long time and expected to keep searching. If Kazuya gets to him first, Lars said, then we lose the only variable in this war that Kazuya can't control. Lars looked at the screens again, at the man who moved through the world's most advanced military hardware like it was an afterthought. Get me a location, he said. I'm going to talk to him. Lee's expression didn't change. You sure that's a conversation you want to have? Lars thought about Jin, about the devil gene eating him alive from the inside, about Kazuya turning the world into his personal demonstration of power, about every plan they'd made crumbling because the enemy was always 3 steps ahead. No, he said, but we're out of good options. Lars found him in what used to be a city. G Corporation had flattened it 2 weeks ago. A demonstration for the benefit of a neighboring country, that had refused to acknowledge Kazuya's authority. Now it was rubble and silence. The man sat on a piece of broken concrete that might have been part of a school. He wasn't doing anything. Just sitting, watching the empty streets with the attention of someone who had nowhere else to be. Lars approached on foot. No weapons visible, hands open. The universal language of someone trying not to get killed immediately. The man's eyes tracked his approach without his head moving. Predator's awareness. The kind that didn't need to look directly at prey to know exactly where it was. Lars stopped 10 meters away, close enough to talk, far enough to react if things went wrong. "You're a long way from wherever you came from," Lars said. The man's gaze shifted to him fully. His eyes were dark and completely unimpressed. "You're the soldier," the man said. His voice was flat. American accent. Not the accent of someone who learned English formally, but someone who spoke it the way he spoke violence naturally. "Lars Alexanderson. I lead a resistance against the man who did this." Lars gestured at the ruins. "Don't care." 2 words. Absolute dismissal. Lars had prepared for hostility, for aggression, for the possibility that this conversation would end with him unconscious or dead. He hadn't prepared for complete indifference. "The man who controls G Corporation," Lars continued, "is the strongest person on this planet. Devil Gene, ancient power. He's planning to reshape the world under his rule." The man stood. The movement was casual, but Lars felt his body tense anyway. Every instinct screaming that standing this close to something that dangerous was a mistake. "Where is he?" Lars blinked. "What? The strong one? Where is he?" Understanding clicked into place. Lee had been right. This thing wasn't interested in their war, wasn't interested in their world. It was just hunting. "Tokyo," Lars said carefully. "But he's surrounded by an army. Security measures. Devil Gene enhanced guards. Getting to him requires planning, coordination, resources. We don't..." The man started walking, not toward Tokyo, toward Lars. Every muscle in Lars' body wanted to move, to create distance, to defend. But he held his ground, because backing down now would establish a hierarchy he couldn't afford. The man stopped a meter away, close enough that Lars could see the complete absence of doubt in his eyes, close enough to feel the weight of something that had never questioned its right to exist. "Take me to him," the man said, "or point me in the right direction and get out of my way." Lars met his gaze and understood 2 things immediately. First, this thing would walk into G Corporation headquarters alone, if necessary. Would tear through whatever forces Kazuya threw at him with the same efficiency he'd shown the Jack units. Second, it wouldn't be enough. Kazuya wasn't just strong, he was prepared, patient. He would use this thing's confidence against him, turn his strength into a weapon for G Corporation's benefit. "You want the strongest fighter," Lars said. "Fine, but the strongest fighter isn't alone. He's built a fortress, an empire. You walk in there alone, he'll bury you in numbers before you get close." The man's expression didn't change. "I've fought armies. Not this one. Not with Devil Gene, not with the kind of preparation Kazuya Mishima brings to a fight he knows is coming." Silence. The man studied Lars with the focus of something deciding whether prey was worth the effort to chase. "You're offering help," the man said. "I'm offering access, information. A way to reach Kazuya that doesn't involve fighting through 30 floors of security first." "What do you want?" "For you to not become another weapon in his arsenal." The man smiled. It was not reassuring. You think I can be used? I think Kazuya will try. And I think you underestimate how dangerous that is. The smile widened slightly. What's your name, soldier? Lars Alexanderson. Yujiro Hanma. He said it the way someone states a fact that should be obvious. Like his name was the kind of thing that required no explanation or context. Lars filed the name away, committed it to memory along with everything else about this encounter that felt wrong in ways he couldn't articulate. Can you fight? Yujiro asked. Lars tensed. What? You want me to trust your information? Prove you know what fighting looks like? Yujiro's stance shifted. Nothing aggressive, just ready. 10 seconds. Show me what you can do. This was a test. Lars knew tests, had run them, had passed them. This was different. This was prey being invited to demonstrate it wasn't worth eating. Lars dropped into fighting stance. Lightning screw style. Fast, aggressive. The kind of approach that had won him battles against Devil Gene-enhanced soldiers. Yujiro didn't move. Lars struck. A testing jab, checking distance and reaction time. Yujiro's head tilted 2 centimeters to the left. The punch missed by the width of thought. Lars adjusted. Combination, high-low mix-up. Footwork that had taken years to perfect. Yujiro stepped into his guard, not blocking, not defending, just entering the space where Lars' offense should have been strongest and making it meaningless. Lars felt the shift in pressure before the actual contact. Yujiro's hand on his shoulder. Not pushing, not pulling, just there. Redirecting his momentum with the casual ease of someone guiding a child. Lars stumbled, caught himself, spun back into guard position. Yujiro stood exactly where he'd started, hands loose, expression unchanged. You're competent, Yujiro said. Better than most. But you fight like someone following rules. Lars' jaw tightened. And you fight like someone who doesn't care if they live or die. I fight like someone who's never had to care. The words hung in the air. Not a boast, not a threat. Just a statement of fact from something that existed outside the normal boundaries of risk and consequence. Lars straightened. His shoulder still tingled where Yujiro had touched it. No pain, no injury, just the ghost of pressure that could have become anything if its owner had decided it should. So, Yujiro said, this Kazuya, you can get me to him. Not directly, not yet. But I can get you close, get you into position. And when the time comes, I can make sure you get what you want. Which is a fight, pure, no interference. Just you and the man who calls himself the strongest. Yujiro considered this, his eyes distant, calculating something that had nothing to do with strategy or tactics. When? He asked. Soon. Kazuya's opening a tournament, King of Iron Fist. He's using it to consolidate power, demonstrate dominance. Every fighter who matters will be there. And you want me to enter? I want you to make Kazuya think you're another piece on his board. Let him believe he controls you. And when the moment's right, I'll do whatever I want, Yujiro interrupted. Don't mistake me following you for me serving you. Lars nodded. He hadn't expected anything else. Fair enough. But until you get what you're looking for, we're moving in the same direction. That's enough. Yujiro's smile returned, colder this time. The expression of something that had just decided a temporary alliance was more entertaining than immediate violence. Show me the way then, soldier. Lars pulled out a communicator, signaled for extraction. 2 minutes out. He looked at Yujiro standing in the ruins of a city that G Corporation had erased from maps and memory. "One more thing," Lars said. "When you get into that ring with him, when you get what you came for, remember that Kazuya doesn't fight to win. He fights to own, to dominate, to prove that everything and everyone exists at his discretion." "Good," Yujiro said. "That'll make breaking him more satisfying." The transport arrived. Lee at the controls, his expression carefully neutral, as he took in the man who'd just agreed to be Yggdrasil's most dangerous asset. Or most catastrophic liability. Lars wasn't sure which yet. Yujiro climbed aboard without hesitation, sat down like he was boarding a civilian aircraft instead of a military insertion craft. His posture was relaxed. His eyes tracked every detail of the interior with the same predatory awareness that never seemed to rest. As the transport lifted off, Lars watched him. Watched the way he didn't brace for turbulence, didn't reach for handholds, just sat there with the confidence of something that had never needed to worry about falling. Lee caught his eye, raised an eyebrow. The unspoken question, did we just make a terrible mistake, Lars didn't have an answer. He looked out at the ruined city falling away beneath them. Thought about Jin losing himself to the devil gene. About Kazuya burning the world one demonstration at a time. About a war they were losing in slow motion. And about the thing they just recruited. The weapon they couldn't control. The variable that might save them or destroy everything they were trying to protect. Yujiro caught him staring. Met his eyes with that same flat, unimpressed gaze. "Something on your mind, soldier. Just wondering," Lars said. "What happens when you find out Kazuya isn't as strong as you're hoping?" Yujiro's smile was glacial. "Then I'll find someone who is." The transport banked toward Tokyo, toward the tournament, toward the confrontation that would either end Kazuya's reign or prove that some forces of nature couldn't be controlled, only unleashed. The announcement came through every screen on the planet simultaneously. Kazuya Mishima stood in front of G Corporation's central tower, 50 stories of black glass and steel that had become the symbol of his new world order. Behind him, the Tokyo skyline stretched toward a blood-red sunset. In front of him, cameras broadcast to 7 billion people who had stopped pretending they had a choice about watching. "The King of Iron Fist tournament returns," Kazuya said. His voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "Every nation will send their strongest. Every fighter who believes they have what it takes will enter. And those who prove their worth will be rewarded." He paused. Let the implications settle. Those who fail will understand the cost of weakness. The screens cut to footage. Arenas being constructed. Military transport. The machinery of spectacle grinding into motion with the efficiency of a corporate war machine. But everyone watching knew the truth. This wasn't a tournament. It was a sorting mechanism. Another demonstration that power determined position. That strength was the only currency that mattered. Kazuya's image returned. His expression hadn't changed. Calm, controlled. The face of someone who had already won and was simply enjoying the process of proving it. "One additional announcement," he said. "This tournament will include a wild card entry. Someone who exists outside our current understanding of combat effectiveness. Someone who has demonstrated capabilities that demand evaluation." The screen shifted, showed footage of ruined G Corporation facilities, jack units scattered like toys, and at the center of it all, a figure who moved through military hardware with the casual disinterest of someone swatting flies. "This individual will participate," Kazuya continued, "and we will see if his strength is genuine or simply the benefit of surprise. The broadcast ended. In the Yggdrasil bunker, Lars stared at the blank screen. Beside him, Lee was already running damage assessment protocols. "He knows," Lee said. "Of course he knows. Kazuya always knows." Lars pulled up tactical overlays, tournament brackets, entry requirements, security measures that made the venue look more like a fortified position than an arena. He's turning this into a trap. Or a recruitment opportunity. Lee highlighted sections of the venue schematics. Notice the reinforced observation boxes, the holding areas designed for high-risk combatants. He's not planning to kill Yujiro. He's planning to own him. Lars thought about the transport ride, about Yujiro sitting in silence, watching Tokyo's lights with eyes that saw only potential targets, about the absolute certainty in his voice when he said he'd break Kazuya. "That's not going to work," Lars said. "I know, but Kazuya doesn't. Not yet." The tournament grounds occupied what used to be a cultural district. G Corporation had cleared it in a single night. Demolished buildings, relocated populations, built something new on top of the old world like they were erasing history in real time. The main arena seated 50,000, screens everywhere, cameras tracking every angle. The kind of production value that turned violence into entertainment and made people forget they were watching sanctioned murder. Yujiro stood in the fighter's entrance, looking at the spectacle with the same expression he'd given everything else mild disinterest. Lars had tried to brief him, explained the format, the brackets. The fact that this was all theater designed to make Kazuya look unstoppable. Yujiro had listened for exactly 30 seconds before walking away. Now he waited while officials processed his entry. They moved around him like water around a rock. Not because he was threatening them, but because something about his presence made their bureaucratic efficiency feel fragile and temporary. A woman approached. Tall, blonde, moving with the controlled grace of someone who'd killed more people than she remembered. Nina Williams, G Corporation's chief assassin, Kazuya's personal fixer for problems that required precision. She stopped 3 meters away. Professional distance. Her eyes cataloged him the way someone might evaluate livestock. "Mr. Hanma," she said. Her accent was British, upper class, the kind of voice that made murder sound civilized. "Mr. Mishima wants you to understand the rules." Not interested. Nina's expression didn't change. "You'll be placed in the wildcard bracket. 3 qualifying matches. If you win all 3, you advance to the main event. If you lose even one, you're removed from the tournament and escorted off premises." By who? The question hung in the air. Nina's eyes narrowed fractionally. "By me," she said. "If necessary." Yujiro looked at her properly for the first time. Assessed her the way he'd assessed Lars. The way he assessed everything as a potential source of entertainment or disappointment. "You'd try," he said. It wasn't a question. It was acknowledgement. Nina heard it for what it was, respect from something that didn't give respect easily. "Your first match is in 20 minutes, she said. "Try not to kill anyone before then. Mr. Mishima prefers his demonstrations to have structure." She walked away. Yujiro watched her go with the faintest trace of a smile. This world had interesting pieces, at least. The first match was against a fighter from South Korea, Hwarang. His file listed him as a specialist in Taekwondo. Multiple tournament victories, known for aggressive offense and reflexes that bordered on precognitive. He entered the arena to roaring applause. Young, confident. The kind of fighter who'd never met a challenge he couldn't handle through speed and volume. Yujiro entered to silence. The crowd didn't know what to make of him. He wore no uniform, no fighting gear, just dark pants and an open shirt that showed the muscles beneath. No ceremony, no posturing. Just the calm of something that had done this too many times to care about presentation. Hwoarang sized him up from across the arena, saw an older man with no visible weapons or enhancements. Saw an opportunity. The bell rang. Hwoarang moved first. A testing kick, high, fast. The kind of opener that established range and forced defensive response. Yujiro's head shifted 5 centimeters. The kick missed by the margin of intention. Hwoarang didn't pause. Combination. Left kick flowing into right. Body rotation adding torque to each strike. Textbook Taekwondo executed with the precision of thousands of hours of training. Yujiro stepped forward. Not blocking, not defending. Just closing distance while Hwoarang was mid-combination. Entering the space where offense should have been strongest and making it irrelevant. Hwoarang adjusted, dropped his stance, went low with a sweep meant to take legs out from under. Yujiro's hand caught his ankle mid-swing. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Hwoarang pulled, twisted, tried to break the grip using leverage and body mechanics. Yujiro's fingers didn't move. Then he pulled back. Not hard, not violent. Just a casual tug that sent Hwoarang stumbling forward, balance completely gone. Hwoarang recovered, rolled, came up swinging with the kind of desperate aggression that came from realizing you were outmatched. Yujiro waited until the punch was committed, then stepped inside the arc and drove his palm into Hwoarang's solar plexus. The impact was surgical. Not enough to break ribs, just enough to empty lungs and convince the body that breathing was optional. Hwoarang dropped to one knee, gasping. His eyes wide with the shock of someone who just discovered speed meant nothing against something that didn't need to be fast. Yujiro looked down at him. No contempt, no pride, just the neutral assessment of someone confirming what they already knew. Better than most, Yujiro said. Still not enough. He walked away, left Hwoarang kneeling in the center of the arena, struggling to breathe and process what had just happened. The crowd didn't know whether to cheer or stay silent. Yujiro didn't care either way. The second match came 3 hours later, long enough for medical teams to clear the previous combatants, long enough for the crowd to work themselves into a frenzy of speculation about the wild card who dismantled one of their favorites. King entered the arena to thunderous approval. The legendary wrestler. The man in the jaguar mask who fought for orphanages and honor and every noble cause that made good television. He was massive, built like the kind of architecture that didn't fall easily. His record spoke for itself. Multiple tournament victories, submission specialist, the kind of grappler who turned fights into physics problems and always solved them in his favor. Yujiro stood across from him and saw something different than the crowd did. Not a hero, just another body that thought muscle mass meant dominance. The bell rang. King didn't rush. He circled. Professional, looking for angles and openings, setting up the grappling range where his size advantage would matter. Yujiro stood still. Let him circle. Let him plan. King committed. Shot low. Perfect wrestling takedown, hands reaching for legs to establish control before transitioning to ground game. Yujiro's knee came up and met King's jaw with the precision of someone who'd seen this approach 1,000 times. King's head snapped back, but he didn't release. Professional pride kept his hands locked on Yujiro's legs, even as stars exploded behind his eyes. Yujiro looked down at him, saw the determination, the refusal to quit. Interesting. King pulled, used his weight, got Yujiro off balance and drove him toward the mat. For a moment it looked like it might work. King's strength was genuine. His technique was flawless. This was what he did. This was where he won. Yujiro's back hit the mat. King transitioned immediately, went for an armbar, the kind of submission that ended fights when applied correctly. Yujiro's free hand grabbed King's wrist. The grip was conversational. No visible strain, no struggle. Just fingers closing around bone and muscle, with the casual certainty of someone who decided this had gone on long enough. King pulled, tried to break the grip using leverage points that had worked on everyone else. Yujiro's fingers didn't budge. Then he twisted. Not fast. Just a slow, inexorable rotation that reversed King's position and put pressure on joints in directions they weren't designed to bend. King released. Had to. The alternative was permanent damage. Yujiro stood, pulled King up with him like he weighed nothing, held him there for a moment, eye level, mask to face. "You're strong," Yujiro said, "and you don't give up. That's worth something." Then he threw him. Not viciously, not with the intent to injure. Just a controlled toss that sent King sliding across the mat and out of the combat zone. The crowd erupted, half cheering, half confused. Nobody quite sure what they'd just witnessed. King lay there for a moment, processing. Then he stood, straightened his mask, and nodded once. Respect recognized, even in defeat. Yujiro returned the nod, the closest thing to acknowledgement he'd given anyone. The third match was different. Reina entered the arena with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no, young, dangerous. Moving with the controlled arrogance of the Mishima bloodline. The crowd recognized the style before the announcement confirmed it. The way she carried herself, the pressure she radiated. Devil gene ancestry written in every deliberate step. Lars watched from the observation deck and felt his stomach drop. "He's testing Yujiro," Lee said quietly. "Seeing if he can trigger a devil awakening. Reina doesn't know what she's walking into. I don't think Kazuya cares." In the arena, Yujiro studied his opponent with more interest than he'd shown the previous two. This one was different. This one had potential buried under arrogance and inexperience. Reina smiled. Predatory, excited. "They say you're strong," she said. "Let's see if that's true." The bell rang. Reina didn't circle, didn't test, just attacked with the aggressive offense of someone who'd been training under the Mishima philosophy since birth. Pressure, volume, overwhelming force designed to break lesser fighters through sheer relentless assault. Yujiro blocked, parried, let her establish her rhythm while he read the patterns. Mishima-style karate, modified, personal touches that spoke to hours of private training. Good fundamentals. Excellent execution. Still predictable. Reina threw a spinning kick meant to take his head off. Yujiro caught her ankle, held it, used it to pull her off balance and into range for a palm strike to her sternum. The impact drove air from her lungs, sent her stumbling back. But she didn't fall. Devil gene resilience keeping her upright when normal human durability would have failed. Yujiro saw it. The flash of something inhuman behind her eyes. The surge of power trying to surface. He pressed forward, not giving her time to gather herself, not letting the devil gene find its footing, just constant methodical pressure. Each strike placed to exploit openings, to force defensive reactions, to push her closer and closer to the edge where instinct overrode training. Reina's frustration built. She wasn't used to being dominated, wasn't used to her offense meaning nothing. Her strikes got wilder, less controlled. Yujiro could see the devil gene trying to break through, could see her teetering on the edge of transformation, of letting the power make decisions for her. He stopped, stepped back, let her catch her breath. Reina stared at him, confusion warring with rage. "Why did you—" "You're not ready," Yujiro said. "That thing inside you, you think it's strength. It's not. It's a crutch. And you can't fight properly while leaning on it." Reina's eyes blazed. "I don't need your—" Yujiro moved, closed the distance in a heartbeat. His hand wrapped around her throat, not choking, just holding, making a point. "You want to be strong," he said quietly. "Really strong, not just devil gene strong. Then prove you can stand without it." He released her, stepped back again. Reina stood there, trembling, not from fear, from the realization that she'd just been given a lesson she didn't know she needed. "Come at me again," Yujiro said. "No devil, just you." Reina wiped blood from her lip. Her expression shifted. Less arrogance, more focus. She attacked again. Cleaner this time, more controlled, using technique instead of trying to overwhelm. Better. Yujiro defended, countered, pushed her to her limits without breaking her. The fight lasted another 2 minutes. Reina gave everything she had, every technique, every ounce of skill that didn't rely on supernatural enhancement. It wasn't enough. But it was closer. Yujiro ended it with a sweep that put her on her back, stood over her, looked down at the young fighter who'd just learned the difference between inherited power and earned strength. "You've got potential," he said. "Don't waste it." He walked away, left her lying there, staring at the ceiling, processing. The crowd didn't know how to react. This wasn't the violence they'd expected. This was something else. Something that looked like teaching disguised as combat. In the observation deck, Kazuya watched with narrowed eyes. This wasn't what he'd planned. Yujiro wasn't playing his role, wasn't being the destructive force that could be weaponized. He was being selective, purposeful, more dangerous. Nina appeared at Kazuya's side. "Your assessment—" "He's not what I thought," Kazuya said slowly. "He's worse." "Worse how?" Kazuya watched Yujiro disappear into the fighter's tunnel. Watched the way the crowd parted without him asking. The way even trained killers gave him space. "He's not interested in power," Kazuya said. "He's interested in worthy opponents. That makes him unpredictable, uncontrollable. Should we eliminate him?" Kazuya was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. Cold, calculating. "No. Let him advance. I want to see what happens when he meets Jin." Between matches in a corridor beneath the arena, Yujiro encountered something that made him pause. A bear. Kuma. Legendary fighter in his own right. Trained in martial arts by the previous Mishima patriarch. Currently standing in the middle of the hallway like a furry roadblock. Yujiro stopped. Looked at the bear. The bear looked back. For a moment, neither moved. Then Kuma's eyes widened. Some primal instinct recognizing something that transcended species boundaries. Recognition of a predator that existed on a level bears weren't equipped to challenge. Kuma backed up, slowly, carefully, then turned and shambled away with as much dignity as a retreating bear could manage. Yujiro watched him go, the faintest trace of amusement touching his expression. Even the animals knew better. He continued walking. 3 victories, qualification complete. The path to stronger opponents clear. Somewhere in this tournament, there was someone worth fighting. Someone who could make him feel something other than disappointment. He intended to find out if this world could deliver, or if he'd need to start looking elsewhere. Jin Kazama had stopped sleeping. Not because he couldn't, because every time he closed his eyes, he saw the same thing. Ogre rising from flames, his mother falling. The moment everything changed, and the devil gene became the only answer to a question he'd never wanted to ask. Operation Lightning had failed. Manhattan burned, and Jin had lost control in the middle of it all. Let the devil take over because he was tired. Because fighting it took more energy than he had left. Because some part of him whispered that maybe Kazuya was right. Maybe power was the only thing that mattered. He sat in a holding area beneath the tournament grounds. Medical had cleared him, declared him fit for combat. They didn't know that fitness was measured in more than physical capability. That you could pass every test and still be falling apart. Lars found him there, staring at his hands like they belonged to someone else. "You don't have to do this," Lars said. Jin didn't look up. "Yes, I do. Kazuya wants you in the tournament because it serves his narrative. You fighting proves that even his enemies acknowledge his authority. You refusing would be its own form of resistance. And what happens when people need someone to stop him, when they're looking for proof that he can be beaten?" Jin's hands clenched into fists. "I can't be that person if I'm hiding." Lars sat down beside him, said nothing for a moment. Then, "There's another fighter in the tournament, wild card entry. He's already qualified." I saw the footage. He's different, Jin. Not devil gene, not enhanced. Just strong in a way that doesn't fit our understanding. And he's looking for challenges. Jin finally looked at him. His eyes were dark, hollow in a way that had nothing to do with physical exhaustion. "You want me to fight him?" "I want you to survive him," Lars said quietly. "Because I think Kazuya is going to put you two together. And I think he's expecting you to use the devil gene, to prove to the world that you're just another monster he can control." Jin looked at his hands again, at the skin that sometimes wasn't skin, at the humanity that felt more like a costume every day. "What if that's all I am?" he asked. Lars stood, put a hand on Jin's shoulder. "Then prove otherwise." The announcement came during the tournament's second day. Kazuya appeared on every screen. His expression was calm, amused in the way cats were amused by wounded prey. "A special exhibition match," he said. "Jin Kazama, my son, the failed savior who tried to destroy what I'm building. He will face the wild card, and we will see which approach to power proves superior." The screens showed Jin's image. Then Yujiro's, side by side. The burdened warrior and the apex predator. "Tomorrow," Kazuya continued. "Main arena. No time limit. No interference. Just 2 fighters and the question of who truly deserves to stand." The broadcast ended. In the fighters' preparation area, Jin received the news with the same empty calm he'd carried since Manhattan. Expected. Inevitable. Just another step toward whatever ending this story had been building toward since his mother died. Yujiro received the news by not reacting at all. Lars tried to brief him, explain who Jin was, what the devil gene meant, the political implications of this fight. Yujiro listened for exactly 15 seconds before cutting him off. "Is he strong?" "He's complicated. The devil gene makes him powerful, but he's fighting to maintain control. Using it eats away at his humanity. He's trying to... Is he strong? Lars stopped, met those flat, predatory eyes. Yes, he said finally, when he lets himself be. Yujiro smiled. Good. The arena filled to capacity an hour before the scheduled match. 50,000 people cramming into seats to witness what the promotional material called a clash between new power and old resistance. Nobody mentioned that both fighters looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Jin entered first. The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some cheered. Most stayed silent. He was a reminder of a world before Kazuya, before G Corporation, before the new order that made strength the only virtue worth having. He wore his standard fighting gear, black and red, practical. The uniform of someone who'd given up on ceremony and focused entirely on function. His eyes scanned the arena without seeing it, looking for something he couldn't name. Some answer to a question he didn't know how to ask. Then Yujiro entered. The crowd's noise dropped to nothing. He walked like he owned the space, not arrogant, just certain, the way gravity was certain, the way death was certain. Jin felt it before Yujiro reached the center. Pressure, not physical, not the devil gene's corruption, just the weight of something that had never doubted its right to exist. Their eyes met across 20 meters of combat space. Jin saw challenge, assessment, the complete absence of fear or respect or anything that acknowledged their fight as meaningful beyond its immediate entertainment value. Yujiro saw potential. Maybe. Buried under trauma and self-doubt and the constant battle against internal corruption. The referee gave the standard warnings. Neither fighter acknowledged him. The official retreated to the edge of the arena like he'd suddenly remembered he was standing between two forces of nature. The bell rang. Neither moved. The crowd held its breath, waiting for the explosion, the clash, the immediate violence that marked the beginning of every fight they'd seen. Jin and Yujiro stood motionless, 15 meters apart, just watching. Then Jin moved first, a step forward, testing. His stance was perfect. Kazama-style karate, clean lines, controlled breathing. Everything his grandfather had taught him about fighting with precision instead of power. Yujiro tilted his head fractionally, reading the approach, cataloging the technique. Jin committed, closed the distance with a straight punch aimed at center mass. Textbook execution, the kind of strike that had won him dozens of fights. Yujiro's hand came up, not blocking, deflecting, just enough pressure at just the right angle to send Jin's momentum sliding past its target. Jin adjusted mid-strike, turned the miss into a follow-up elbow, chain combination that flowed like water. Yujiro stepped into his guard, close enough that Jin could see the complete lack of concern in his eyes. Too close for effective striking. Too close for Jin's spacing to work. Jin tried to create distance, pushed off, reset. Yujiro followed, matched his movement, staying inside the range where Jin's technique meant less than his ability to adapt. They exchanged, fast, precise. Jin throwing combinations that would have dismantled most opponents. Yujiro deflecting just enough to stay safe while applying constant forward pressure. No wasted energy, no excess motion. Just two fighters finding each other's rhythm. Jin felt his frustration building. Every strike was getting read, every approach was getting countered. He was fighting clean, fighting smart, and it wasn't enough. The devil gene stirred, whispered its usual promises. Let me help. Jin gritted his teeth, threw a spinning back fist meant to create separation and buy thinking time. Yujiro caught his wrist mid-spin. The grip was conversational. No strain, just fingers closing around bone with the certainty of someone who decided the demonstration phase was over. Jin pulled, used his body weight, tried to break free using leverage that had worked against Devil Gene-enhanced soldiers. Yujiro's fingers didn't move. Then he pulled back, drew Jin off balance, into range for a palm strike to the solar plexus. The impact was surgical. Not enough to break ribs, just enough to convince Jin's nervous system that breathing was suddenly very difficult. Jin stumbled back, gasping, his vision blurred at the edges. The Devil Gene surged, trying to surface, trying to protect him from something it recognized as a genuine threat. Jin forced it down, refused. Not like this, not because he was losing. Yujiro watched him struggle, saw the internal war playing out behind Jin's eyes, the conflict between accepting help and maintaining control. "You're holding back," Yujiro said. His voice carried across the arena, flat, stating fact. "That thing inside you wants to fight. Why won't you let it?" Jin straightened, still struggling for air. "Because it's not me." "So what?" Yujiro took a step forward. "You think I care about your moral crisis? You think that matters to the fight? It matters to me." Yujiro smiled. "Cold. Then you've already lost." He moved, fast enough that Jin's battered nervous system barely registered the approach. A grab, a throw. Jin hit the mat hard enough to crack concrete. The crowd erupted, half cheering, half shocked into silence. Jin lay there for a moment, tasting blood, feeling the Devil Gene screaming at him to just let go, to stop pretending humanity was worth preserving. He stood, slower this time. Everything hurt. But he stood. Yujiro watched with something that might have been approval. "Better," Yujiro said. "Show me what you can do when you stop apologizing for existing." Jin reset his stance, centered his breathing, let go of the guilt, the doubt, the constant questioning of whether he deserved to be strong. Not because the Devil Gene told him to, because he chose it. He attacked again. Different this time. Not trying to prove he could win clean, just trying to win. Using every technique, every angle, every dirty trick his grandfather had taught him about fighting when the rules stopped mattering. Yujiro defended. But he had to work for it now. Had to actually read Jin's rhythm instead of just countering obvious approaches. They moved through the arena like an equation solving itself. Action and reaction, pressure and resistance. Two philosophies about strength testing themselves against reality. Jin landed a clean counter, caught Yujiro coming forward with a punch that snapped his head back. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. Yujiro touched his lip, saw blood on his fingers. Then he laughed, not mocking, not cruel, just genuine appreciation for something that had finally made him feel challenged. "There it is," he said. "That's what I wanted to see." He pressed forward, harder now, testing Jin's limits, pushing him toward the edge where technique gave way to desperation. Jin met him, refused to give ground, refused to let the Devil Gene make decisions for him. They traded strikes. Close range, brutal efficiency. The kind of fighting that had nothing to do with sport and everything to do with proving something to yourself. Jin felt his body starting to fail. Ribs cracked, muscles torn, the kind of damage that would take weeks to heal. But he didn't stop. Yujiro saw it. The refusal to quit. The stubborn determination to prove that willpower could compete with raw capability. He caught Jin's next punch, held it, locked eyes with him. "You're strong," Yujiro said quietly. Only Jin could hear. "Not because of that gene, because you fight it and keep standing anyway. That's worth something." Then the arena exploded. Not metaphorically. Actual explosions, the walls shaking, alarms screaming. The structural integrity of the tournament venue suddenly becoming very questionable. Yujiro released Jin's hand. Both fighters turned toward the source of chaos. Lars's voice came through the arena's emergency system. Urgent, professional. The tone of someone coordinating an assault under fire. "All fighters evacuate. Yggdrasil forces are engaging G Corporation security. This is not a drill." The crowd panicked. 50,000 people trying to exit simultaneously, crushing toward exits, screaming. Jin looked at Yujiro. "We're not finished." "No," Yujiro agreed. "But your war just interrupted mine." More explosions. Closer now. The coordinated chaos of Yggdrasil's assault on G Corporation's seat of power. Jin's communicator crackled. "Lars. Jin, we need you. Kazuya's moving forces toward Yakushima. This is our window." Jin hesitated. Looked at Yujiro one more time. "Will you?" "I don't fight for causes," Yujiro said. "And I don't care about your family drama. When this is over and you've dealt with your father, find me. We'll finish properly." Jin nodded. Turned. Ran toward the exit where Lars was coordinating the extraction. Yujiro watched him go, then looked up at the observation deck where Kazuya had been watching. Empty now. The puppet master had cut his strings and moved to the next stage. Around him, the arena burned. People fled. The tournament that was supposed to prove G Corporation's dominance crumbled into chaos. Yujiro walked toward the exit, unhurried, the explosions and gunfire and screaming just background noise. He'd gotten what he came for, confirmation that this world had at least one fighter worth remembering, one person who could take punishment and keep standing. Not because of supernatural enhancement, but because refusing to fall was more important than avoiding pain. The rest of it. The war, the politics, the grand conflict between father and son. That was their problem. Yujiro had patience. He would wait. Let them resolve their issues. Let the strong rise and the weak fall. And when the dust settled, he would find whoever was left standing and see if they could finish what Jin had started. Behind him, the tournament grounds collapsed into rubble and flame. Ahead, the war reached its inevitable conclusion. Yujiro found a rooftop. Tokyo spread out below him, burning in places, fighting in others. The mechanical precision of military engagement grinding human beings into statistics. He sat, watched, waited, somewhere south Yakushima, where Kazuya had moved his forces, where Jin was headed to confront the source of everything that had broken his life. Yujiro could have followed, could have inserted himself into that conflict, turned it into something more interesting. But that wasn't the point. The point was the fight itself. Not the stakes, not the consequences. Just the pure expression of capability against capability. And Jin had earned the right to face his father without interference. Hours passed. The fighting intensified, then peaked, then began to quiet. Yujiro felt it when the battle reached its climax, felt the massive surge of energy that could only be Devil Gene at full power. Two sources, father and son, tearing reality apart in their determination to prove superiority. Then something changed. The energy shifted. One source transformed. Not devil anymore. Something else. Something that felt like devil Jin filtered through different intentions. Angel Jin. Yujiro smiled. The kid had found his answer, had stopped fighting what he was and started choosing what he wanted to be. Good for him. The energy signatures clashed, merged, then vanished entirely in a pulse that made the horizon glow white. Then silence. Yujiro stood, stretched. The fight was over. The war was done. Whatever happened next would be rebuilding and recrimination and all the boring parts of conflict resolution. He started walking. No particular direction, just away from Tokyo, away from the politics and consequences. He'd come to this world looking for strength, found it in a kid who fought harder against himself than against any enemy. That was enough. For now. The world would keep turning. New fighters would rise. New challenges would emerge. And when they did, Yujiro Hanma would be there. Not to save anyone, not to conquer anything, just to test himself against whatever came next. Because that was all that mattered. The search for someone worth fighting. Everything else was just noise. 3 days after Yakushima. The world was still processing what had happened. Footage leaked across every network. 2 figures clashing in the sky above an island that shouldn't have survived their conflict. Devil against angel. Father against son. The old order against something new. Then light. Blinding. Absolute. When it cleared, only one figure remained standing. Jin Kazama. Human. No wings. No devil corruption. Just a man who'd burned away every piece of inherited power and chosen to stand on his own terms. Kazuya was gone. Not dead. The reports were unclear, but gone from the board, removed from the equation of power that had defined global politics for the last year. G Corporation fractured overnight. Without Kazuya's absolute authority, the corporate empire collapsed into competing factions. Regional commanders making plays for territory. Board members trying to salvage assets. The careful machinery of domination grinding itself to pieces. The world exhaled. Jin stood in the ruins of Yakushima and felt nothing. No triumph, no relief. Just the quiet emptiness of someone who'd won a fight that cost everything to finish. Lars found him there, standing among rubble that still glowed with residual energy from a battle that had rewritten local geography. "The UN wants to talk," Lars said. "The coalition forces. Everyone who opposed Kazuya. They're calling you a hero." Jin looked at his hands. Still human. Still his. "I'm not. I know. But the world needs symbols right now. Needs to believe that fighting back meant something." "And what do you need?" Lars was quiet for a moment. "I need to know you're going to be okay." Jin smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "I burned the devil gene out of my bloodline. Used Angel Jin's power to purge it completely. No more corruption. No more inheritance. Just me. That's not what I asked." Jin turned, met Lars's eyes. I don't know if I'm going to be okay, but I'm going to try." "That's more than I could say a week ago." Lars nodded, started to say something else, then stopped. Someone was walking toward them, through the rubble, moving with the unhurried confidence of something that had been waiting patiently for the right moment. Yujiro Hanma emerged from the smoke and ash like a ghost materializing from bad memories. Jin's entire body tensed. Lars reached for a weapon that wasn't there. Yujiro stopped 10 meters away, looked at Jin, really looked, cataloging the changes, the absence of devil corruption, the hollowness that came from burning away part of yourself to save the rest. You won, Yujiro said. I survived it, Sansan, Jin corrected. Same thing. Jin studied him. This thing that had pushed him to his breaking point. That had made him question everything about how he fought and why. That had somehow taught him more in 10 minutes than years of training. Why are you here? Jin asked. Yujiro smiled, that cold, predatory expression that never quite reached genuine warmth. We didn't finish. The words hung in the air. Lars stepped forward. Jin just fought a war, purged the devil gene. He needs... I'm not asking him, Yujiro interrupted. I'm telling him, when you've rested, when you've healed, when you're ready to fight without excuses or interruptions, find me. Jin felt something stir in his chest. Not the devil gene. That was gone. Just his own response. His own desire to prove that he could stand against impossible odds without supernatural enhancement. And if I don't? Jin asked. Yujiro shrugged. Then I'll find someone else. World's full of fighters. Someone out there is strong enough to make it interesting. He turned to leave. Stopped, looked back. But you are, he said, strong enough. You proved it when you chose to fight me without that gene. When you burned it out to beat your father. That's real strength. Not the kind you're born with, the kind you earn. Honest Jin felt something shift. Not hope exactly, but acknowledgement. Recognition from something that didn't give recognition lightly. How do I find you? Jin asked. Yujiro's smile widened fractionally. You don't? When you're ready, I'll know. And I'll be there. How will you know? Because fighters like you don't stay quiet. You'll keep fighting, keep testing yourself, and eventually you'll make enough noise that I hear it. He started walking again. Lars watched him go with the expression of someone witnessing a natural disaster leave peacefully. Jin, Lars said quietly, you don't have to do this. You don't owe him anything. I know, Jin said. But he's right. We didn't finish. You just saved the world. You're allowed to rest. Jin looked at the horizon, at the smoke rising from a battle that had rewritten the rules of what was possible, at a world that would rebuild itself according to new hierarchies of power. I didn't save the world, he said. I just removed one threat. There will be others, and I need to be strong enough to face them without relying on inherited power, without the devil gene as a crutch. And you think fighting him will make you stronger. I think fighting him will prove I'm strong enough. Jin turned to Lars. Everything I've done, every battle. It's been about the devil gene, about containing it, controlling it, or being controlled by it. For the first time in my life, that's not a factor. I need to know who I am without it. Lars understood. Didn't like it, but understood. When you do find him, Lars said, try not to get killed. Jin almost smiled. I'll do my best. Yujiro walked away from Yakushima with the satisfaction of someone who'd confirmed a theory. The world had delivered. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Jin Kazama had proven himself worthy, not as the strongest fighter alive, but as someone with the potential to become that through choice and effort instead of birthright. That was rare, worth cultivating, worth waiting for. Yujiro had patience, had spent lifetimes searching for opponents who could make him try, who could push him toward the limits he'd never quite reached. Jin might be one, might not. The only way to know was to wait. Let him grow. Let him test himself against whatever came next. And then, when he'd learned everything this world could teach him, meet again. No interruptions, no devil gene, no excuses. Just two fighters and the question of who deserved to stand. Yujiro smiled at the horizon. The search continued. It always did. But for the first time in a long while, he felt optimistic about the results. This world had surprised him, had delivered fighters with genuine strength, with the will to stand against impossible odds. That was worth staying for, at least until he got bored. He kept walking, away from the ruins, away from the politics and reconstruction, away from everything except the simple truth that had always defined him. Power was meaningless without challenge. And challenge was meaningless without risk. Somewhere in this world or the next, there was someone strong enough to make him uncertain, to make him question, to make him feel something other than the quiet disappointment of victory without effort. He would find them, or they would find him. Either way, the fight would happen, and when it did, the world would learn the difference between strength that was given and strength that was earned, between power that controlled and power that simply was, between fighters who survived and fighters who conquered. Yujiro Hanma disappeared into the distance, leaving behind only footprints and the promise of violence yet to come. The ogre had entered the Iron Fist War, and he was just getting started. And, in a universe built on bloodlines, corporations, and supernatural power, Yujiro introduces a far more unsettling idea: strength without justification. He owes nothing to Devil Gene's destiny or ideology. His existence forces every major force in Tekken to confront an uncomfortable truth. Much of their power depends on systems' excuses and control. Yujiro needs none of them. For Jin, Yujiro becomes a living warning proof of what remains when strength is stripped of restraint, purpose, and compassion. For Kazuya, he is a contradiction, someone who embodies dominance yet refuses to rule. For the world itself, Yujiro is not a conqueror, but a pressure test, revealing which fighters rely on borrowed power and which can stand on their own. When Yujiro leaves, the war continues, the devil gene fades, and the world moves on. But something lingers. Tekken no longer measures power the same way, because it has seen what power looks like when it answers to no one. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And be sure to turn on notifications so you won't miss our future videos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.